autobiography is a biography in which the author writes about his or her own life rather than someone else's. It's written from the first-person point of view of I rather than he or she. An autobiography describes events that happen in one's own life. The personal significance of these events is important. Details provide the historical context in which the events took place. Finally, an organized structure, often chronological, provides order to the story. Let's watch a story about civil rights activist Malcolm X, and then we'll talk about how to write your own autobiography. Malcolm X was a controversial leader in the Black community who encouraged African Americans to demand racial equality in 1960s society. Unlike other civil rights activists who promoted nonviolent protest, Malcolm X took a harder line.
We're loving people. We love everybody who loves us. But we don't love anybody who doesn't love us.
Malcolm X was born Malcolm Little in Omaha, Nebraska in 1925. He had a turbulent childhood. When Malcolm was 6 years old, his father was murdered by the Ku Klux Klan.
When my mother was pregnant with me, she told me later, a party of hooded Ku Klux Klan riders galloped up to our home in Omaha, Nebraska one night, surrounding the house, brandishing their shotguns and rifles. They shouted for my father to come out.
After his father's death, Malcolm and his brother and sister were sent to separate foster homes. Despite his family's hardships, Malcolm was an excellent student. He wanted to become a lawyer, but a teacher discouraged him.
He kind of half smiled and said, "Malcolm, one of life's first needs is for us to be realistic. A lawyer? You need to think about something you can be. Why don't you plan on carpentry?" It was then that I began to change inside.
When he was in 8th grade, Malcolm dropped out of school and worked odd jobs. When he was a teenager, Malcolm sold drugs, became a drug addict, and began to organize a burglary ring. At the age of 20, Malcolm was arrested and sent to prison for burglary. Prison was life-changing for Malcolm. With lots of time to think and read, he began studying Islam and adopted the religion as his own. When he was released from prison several years later, Malcolm changed his last name to X, symbolizing his missing true African family name. Soon, Malcolm X became an active member of the Nation of Islam, an organization of Black Muslims. He disagreed with the leaders in the Nation of Islam, and in 1964, he broke from the group and started the Organization of Afro-American Unity. He made a pilgrimage to Mecca in Saudi Arabia to learn about true Islam. He was an outspoken and charismatic leader. Ultimately, his aggressive tactics on the quest for equality didn't sit well with many people, including the bitter members of his former affiliation, the Nation of Islam. Malcolm X wrote of a life in progress. He began his autobiography when he was only 37, in collaboration with writer Alex Haley. The pair worked together for 2 years to tell the story of Malcolm X's life experiences. On February 21, 1965, shortly after the autobiography was completed, Malcolm X was shot and killed by 3 members of the Nation of Islam while speaking at a rally at the Audubon Ballroom in Harlem, New York. Now that you have learned the story of Malcolm X, let's discuss how to write your own autobiography. Autobiographies are books that present the experiences of a person's life from their own point of view. Often, the writer organizes the events chronologically, beginning with their birth or earliest recollections and ending with the present day. Malcolm X's story was a remarkable one. He had a tumultuous childhood. Later, while in prison, he became a prominent activist for the Nation of Islam. He was assassinated at the age of 39. As a young person, you may not feel that you've had enough eventful experiences to write about. The important thing is to write about events in your life that are of importance to you. Where were you born? Have you ever moved to a new city? Have you ever lost a loved one? Organize these events in a logical way so the reader can easily follow your story. It is important to understand the significance of the events in your life. Events that change your life dramatically are significant. What were the significant events in Malcolm X's life? The death of his father, his turbulent childhood, going to prison, and discovering Islam. How have the events that occurred in your life affected you? Have they made you feel proud or sad? Did those events cause you to look at things differently? Race was an important issue for Malcolm X. He felt strongly that he needed to become an activist to make changes in society. When you write your own autobiography, ask yourself, how has the world around you affected you? Who are your parents? Where do you live? Is it a time of war or peace? An autobiography describes events that happen in one's own life. The personal significance of these events is important. Details provide the historical context in which the events took place. Finally, an organized structure, often chronological, provides order to the story. Write a short autobiography. Include the major events in your life and explain why they are important to you.